The Sycamore Street house glowed with light and laughter, its high windows shining out onto the manicured lawn. Inside, the scent of roast chicken and fresh-cut flowers mingled with the polished air of old money and new ambition. Family portraits lined the hallway, law degrees, championship trophies, gleaming smiles. In every frame but one, Naomi's mother stood, front and center. Perfect posture, perfect pearls, her 2 daughters at her side. One was always just a little out of focus. Tonight was meant to be a celebration. Maya's acceptance into Yale Law, the latest in a long line of Holmes family triumphs. Every lawyer, judge, and city official within 10 miles seemed to crowd the living room, sipping wine and trading stories about the future of the Holmes legacy. Naomi stood in the corner, her black curls tumbling down her shoulders, a thin smile fixed to her lips as she clutched a sketchbook to her chest. She had come straight from the little studio she rented above the bakery downtown, the smell of turpentine still clinging to her jacket. She had planned to slip in, say hello, and disappear before anyone noticed her paint-stained hands. But she'd barely made it 2 steps past the front door before her mother intercepted her, eyes sweeping over Naomi's outfit. A simple black dress, no pearls, no effort to hide the ink under her fingernails. "Couldn't you at least pretend to care?" her mother hissed, low enough for only Naomi to hear. "This is your sister's night." Naomi pressed her lips together. "I came. I'm proud of Maya." Her mother's mouth tightened. "Try to act like it, then. Don't embarrass us." She wanted to melt into the wallpaper, but there was no escape. Maya was radiant in navy blue, her smile dazzling as guests lined up to congratulate her. Their father held court nearby, telling the story of Maya's debate victories for the 3rd time, never mentioning Naomi's art show last month, never noticing her at all. Halfway through the evening, Naomi was cornered by her Aunt Gloria, glass of Chardonnay in hand. "Still painting, dear?" Gloria asked, as if discussing a childish habit. "You know, your mother says you'd be brilliant if you applied yourself. You could always take a few pre-law classes at community college. There's still time to be somebody." Naomi's cheeks burned. "I am somebody?" A nearby cousin snorted. "Not in this family, you're not." A ripple of laughter swept through the group. Naomi shrank back, wishing for invisibility. At that moment, her mother's voice cut through the noise, clear, commanding. "Naomi, come here." The room fell silent. Her mother stood by the piano, Maya beside her, a crowd of relatives and family friends circling close. Naomi's heart raced. She hated being on display. "Your sister is the pride of our family," her mother announced. "But we mustn't forget Naomi. She's creative. Tonight, I'd like her to share a few words about what it means to support your family's dreams, even when your own may be different." Naomi felt every pair of eyes on her. She hesitated, but her mother's stare brooked no refusal. She stepped forward, clutching her sketchbook like a shield. She cleared her throat, voice trembling. "I'm proud of Maya. She worked hard for everything she's achieved." She glanced at her sister, who smiled sweetly, a glint of something unreadable in her eyes. Naomi continued, searching for strength. "I know I'm not the traditional Holmes. I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to paint, to make things beautiful. But that doesn't mean I don't love this family." Her mother's hand closed over her shoulder, gentle but cold. "And yet, you insist on disappointing us." A laugh, sharp, nervous, rippled through the crowd. Naomi's vision blurred with shame and humiliation. Someone called out from the back, Maybe it's time to grow up, Naomi. The world doesn't need starving artists. Maya stepped forward, her voice dripping with sweet condescension. It's okay, Naomi. Not everyone is meant for greatness. You can always paint in your spare time. Naomi's grip tightened on her sketchbook. In that moment, something in her snapped. A thread pulled too tight for too long. She looked at her mother, her sister, her entire family, and saw not love, but a performance. A portrait painted in lies. With shaking hands, Naomi opened her sketchbook and ripped out a fresh page. She faced the crowd, voice steady now, edged with defiance. Maybe the world doesn't need another Holmes lawyer. Maybe what it needs is someone honest. Someone who refuses to pretend. I'd rather be a starving artist than a liar in pearls. She dropped the sketch on the piano. A quick, defiant self-portrait. Bold lines and vivid color. Nothing hidden. A hush fell over the room. Her mother's face was white with shock. Maya looked as if she might cry from rage or embarrassment. Naomi turned on her heel and walked out, past the portraits, the trophies, the legacy that had never wanted her. Outside, the air was cool and free. Naomi let herself breathe for the first time in months. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, only that tonight she had chosen herself. Behind her, the perfect family portrait began to crack. Naomi walked through the night, Sycamore Street fading behind her with every step. Each echo of laughter and polite applause from the house scraped raw at her skin, like salt in a wound. She wandered without direction, the city's streetlights flickering above her, her sketchbook clutched in sweaty palms. She tried to keep her head up. It's just words. You're used to it by now, she told herself. But tonight it was more than just words. It was a public exile, a reminder, in front of everyone who mattered, that she would never fit the family's mold. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya. You always have to make a scene, don't you? Grow up, Naomi. Just once, let someone else have their moment. Another from her mother. You embarrassed all of us. When you're ready to apologize, you can come home. Naomi stopped under a street lamp, tears blurring the screen. She typed a reply, then deleted it. There was nothing she could say that wouldn't be twisted, misunderstood, or ignored. Eventually, she reached the edge of the city park, a place she'd come to sketch since childhood. She sank onto a bench, pulling her knees up to her chest, staring at the self-portrait she'd torn from her book. The colors seemed to mock her. Too bright, too honest, too much. In a surge of hopelessness, she crumpled the page and shoved it in her bag. The urge to destroy everything she'd made, every painting, every sketch, every dream, rose hot and fast. What was the point of creating when no one wanted to see her? Was art just another way to fail? She dug through her bag for a lighter, found one at the bottom, and held it shakily over the sketchbook. But the flame sputtered, flickering against the wind. Naomi stared, paralyzed, the heat licking at the edge of her oldest, dearest drawings. Her hands trembled. She closed her eyes, desperate for the courage to let it all burn. A hand landed gently on her shoulder. Naomi? She spun around, startled. Standing a few feet away was Jade, a childhood friend she hadn't seen in over a year. Jade wore old jeans splattered with paint, a backpack full of brushes and spray cans slung over one shoulder. Her eyes, always gentle and perceptive, scanned Naomi's face. "Jade," Naomi croaked. "What are you doing here? Could ask you the same." Jade slid onto the bench beside her. For a moment they sat in silence, the city's heartbeat pulsing around them. Naomi stared at the lighter, her thumb hovering over the switch. I was going to burn it all. I don't want to remember tonight. Jade reached for the sketchbook, fingers soft and sure. Let me see. Naomi hesitated, then handed it over. Jade flipped through the pages, her expression shifting from curiosity to awe. You made these? She whispered. Naomi, this is real. This is you. Why would you ever destroy that? Naomi laughed bitterly. Because nobody wants it. Not my family. Not this city. They just want another Holmes in a suit. Jade shook her head. Your art made me feel things I didn't know how to say out loud. Remember that mural we painted in 6th grade? The teachers tried to scrub it off the cafeteria wall, but it's still there. Kids still talk about it. Naomi wiped her eyes. I remember. That was the last time anyone was proud of me for being me. Jade's voice softened. I was always proud of you, Naomi. I still am. Don't let them take that from you. They sat together until the chill seeped through their jackets. Jade pulled out a thermos of tea, poured a cup, and pressed it into Naomi's hands. You can crash at my place tonight. I've got a spare futon and too much ramen. Naomi hesitated, but exhaustion won. They walked to Jade's tiny apartment above a record store, a sanctuary of color and sound. Inside, every wall was covered with art. Hers, Jade's, their friends. Naomi felt herself exhale for the first time all night. Jade made ramen while Naomi sat cross-legged on the floor, sketchbook open. For the first time, she drew not out of obligation or desperation, but out of need. A need to see herself, to remember that even if her family didn't want her, she was still here. When Jade came back, she set down a bowl and nudged Naomi gently. You don't owe anyone an apology for being yourself. You owe yourself kindness. Start there. Naomi ate in silence, her heart slowly unknotting. The walls of Jade's apartment were filled with mistakes, experiments, joy, and pain. Proof that art wasn't about perfection. It was about living. Later, curled up on the futon, Naomi scrolled through old photos. Her first painting, her sister's graduation, the mural at school. She realized that every time she'd felt invisible, she'd answered by creating something no one could ignore. She turned off her phone, letting the world slip away. In the darkness, she whispered a promise. I won't let them burn me down. I'll find my own light. Somewhere, beyond the pain, was a place where her art would matter, where she would matter. Tomorrow, she would start looking for it. The following afternoon, Naomi awoke to sunlight filtering through Jade's window, the comforting chaos of paint tubes and thrifted records around her. For a few moments, the ache of last night's humiliation receded. Jade was already gone, a note left on the kitchen table. Coffee's brewing. Take what you need. Don't let them win. 3. Jade. Naomi lingered in that safe, borrowed space, working quietly in her sketchbook, drawing hands reaching for the sun. Each stroke felt like a declaration. I'm still here. I'm not erased. But reality crept back in with every buzz of her phone. By noon, the calls and texts were relentless. Her mother, her aunt, even Maya. At first, Naomi let them go to voicemail, refusing to let shame or guilt steer her. But after the third call from her father, a man who rarely reached out, her resolve faltered. His voice on the message was softer than she remembered. Naomi, please come home. Your mother's upset. We shouldn't have embarrassed you. Let's talk, okay? She wasn't sure why she went. Maybe it was hope that This time someone might actually see her pain. Maybe it was just the old, unbreakable thread of family, tugging her back. That evening, Naomi returned to Sycamore Street. The house looked unchanged. Pristine hedges, porch lights glowing. Her heart thudded as she entered, half expecting another barrage of criticism. Instead, her mother greeted her with a carefully arranged smile. "There you are," she said, voice too sweet. "Come, sit, we've been talking." Maya was in the living room, freshly made up, scrolling her phone. Their father poured Naomi a glass of iced tea. For a fleeting moment, it felt like family. But the performance couldn't last. Her mother started gently. "We all said things we regret last night. Emotions ran high. You know how important appearances are, Naomi. This family has always worked hard to earn respect in this town. Sometimes, that means putting the family's needs first." Naomi sipped her tea, wary. "I understand, but my art is part of me. I won't apologize for wanting something different." Her father nodded. "We're not asking you to apologize. In fact, we're hoping you'll help us." He slid a glossy brochure across the table. It was for a citywide charity gala hosted by the Holmes Family Foundation. Naomi's eyes widened. Her parents' names were listed as sponsors, alongside other local leaders. Her mother leaned in. "We want you to paint a mural for the event. Something about hope, progress, whatever you like. It'll be great publicity for the foundation and for you. People will see you're still part of the Holmes family. Isn't that what you want?" Naomi's mouth went dry. She realized in a flash that their reconciliation was conditional. Her art was welcome, as long as it served their image. Maya chimed in. "It'll be good for both of us, Naomi. I can mention you in my speech. Maybe people will stop asking if something's wrong between us." Naomi's jaw clenched. She searched her parents' faces for any sign of genuine remorse, any hint they saw her as more than a means to an end. There was nothing but careful calculation and the faintest glimmer of impatience. She stared at the brochure. The charity's logo. A perfect faceless family in silhouette. "That's what I am to them," she thought bitterly. A silhouette. A story they control. Her father's tone shifted, growing firm. "This is important, Naomi. We need to show unity. You want to be an artist? Fine. But this is how you start. You help your family. After the gala, we'll talk about supporting your work more directly." Naomi realized the room was a stage, and she'd just been handed her script. Her anger simmered, but she forced a smile. "Of course. I'll think of something perfect." Her mother beamed, already turning to make plans, barking orders about paint, supplies, and a photographer for the mural's unveiling. Maya squeezed Naomi's hand, fake warmth in her voice. "See? We're a team again. Just like old times." Naomi's heart twisted. There had never been an again. She had always played a part. Sometimes the prodigal, sometimes the disappointment. Never the equal. That night in her old bedroom, Naomi stared at her childhood drawings taped to the closet door. Sunsets, superheroes, faceless girls walking out of storms. She understood now that her family's acceptance would always have strings. As she lay in the dark, she felt more alone than ever, but her resolve grew sharper. If they wanted to use her art as a shield, they would one day have to face what she truly saw and what she was truly capable of. In the morning, she began sketching. Not for them, but for herself. For the reckoning she knew was coming. For a brief time, Naomi forced herself to believe the reconciliation was real. She poured her pain and longing into sketches for the gala mural, creating a vibrant, defiant scene. A field of faceless figures, breaking free from gray city walls, flowers blooming where footprints fell. It was the first piece she'd ever made for a crowd she knew would never see her truth. But in the secrecy of her room, she started a second, darker series. Masked faces, desperate eyes, hands reaching out only to find doors slammed shut. Her mother hovered, fussing about the color scheme and lighting for the big night. Her father coordinated with the Foundation's media team. Maya practiced her speech in front of the mirror, a portrait of confidence and poise. Yet despite all the surface harmony, Naomi felt the tension simmering beneath every word. She worked alone, painting late into the night, refusing to let her sister or mother help with the mural itself. There was a part of her that still believed, maybe, just maybe, her family might see her for who she truly was. A week before the gala, Naomi submitted her finished mural design to the Foundation committee. The response was swift and full of praise. "It's brilliant," wrote the coordinator. "Your vision is exactly what this event needs." Naomi's heart soared. For a flicker of a moment, she imagined her family proud, not just for her usefulness, but for her art. The morning of the gala, the house buzzed with energy. Naomi awoke early, dressed in simple black slacks and a crisp white blouse, her hair in a neat bun. She carried her sketchbook under her arm, ready for the unveiling. The mural, her mural, waited in the grand ballroom of the city's oldest hotel, shielded by a red curtain. As guests flooded the space, Naomi scanned the crowd for familiar faces. Jade appeared by the door, offering a thumbs up from across the room. For the first time in weeks, Naomi allowed herself a shy, hopeful smile. But as the program began, something strange happened. Maya was called to the stage, alone. Naomi's name was nowhere on the program. Her mother shot her a pointed look. "Sit down and wait," she whispered. "This is how these things are done." Confused, Naomi watched as Maya took the microphone, thanking the crowd, the Holmes family, and the Foundation. Then, with a flourish, Maya gestured to the covered mural. "I am honored to present a work inspired by my journey and my hope for our community," Maya announced, voice steady and sure. "This mural is my gift to the city, a reflection of resilience, unity, and progress." With a pull of the cord, the red curtain fell away. Naomi stared in disbelief. Her mural, every brushstroke and color, stood center stage. But the plaque beneath it read, "Hope in Bloom" by Maya Holmes. A roar of applause filled the hall. Naomi sat frozen, unable to move, her face burning with betrayal and rage. Jade, across the room, caught her eye. Her expression mirrored Naomi's shock and fury. Maya smiled at the cameras, waving for family to join her. Their mother hurried forward, dabbing her eyes, mouthing, "She did it." Their father pulled Maya into a proud embrace. No one looked for Naomi. No one spoke her name. After the ceremony, Naomi confronted Maya backstage, voice shaking. "You stole my work. You lied to everyone." Maya's mask slipped for a split second, revealing a flicker of guilt. Then, cold resolve. "I had to, Naomi. You never cared about the family, only your stupid art. This was important. People expect greatness from us. Why should you get to throw it all away for a hobby?" Naomi's hands balled into fists. "It's not a hobby. It's my life. You took everything from me." Maya stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Grow up, Naomi. This is how the world works. If you ever want to matter in this family or anywhere, you need to learn that." Naomi stumbled away, heart pounding, eyes stinging. She searched for her parents, desperate for validation, for any sign they would stand with her. Her mother was unmoved. "Don't be dramatic. Maya is doing what's best for us all. Can't you see how happy everyone is? For once, can't you just support your sister?" Her father pulled her aside, his words flat. "It's done now. Let it go, Naomi. Don't ruin this for Maya, or for the family." Naomi fled the ballroom, her world collapsing. She wandered the city until dawn, her mind a riot of anger and sorrow. The next morning, she awoke on Jade's couch, numb and hollow. Her phone was flooded with social media posts. "Congrats, Maya. Your art is breathtaking." "So proud of the Holmes family." No mention of Naomi. Only Maya's face beside her mural. Their mother's arm around her, the press calling Maya the creative trailblazer of Sycamore Street. It was a theft not just of Naomi's art, but of her name, her voice, her worth. For a long time, Naomi sat in silence, clutching her ruined sketchbook. Then, with a new, dangerous calm, she opened to a blank page. She began to draw, not hope, not unity, but the truth. It was time for the world to see the real Holmes legacy. Word spread quickly in the city's social circles. The gala mural was a triumph, and Maya Holmes was suddenly everywhere. On the local news, in magazine profiles, guest of honor at city events. Her poised smile and carefully rehearsed speeches about art and legacy made her the perfect new face of the Holmes family. Naomi's phone, however, filled with silence. She waited for someone, anyone, to realize the truth. To notice that Maya had never picked up a brush in her life. But the Holmes name was a fortress. No one questioned a family so established, so untouchable. The days that followed were brutal. At first, Naomi tried to confront her family, but her calls went unanswered. Her texts left unread. When she showed up at Sycamore Street, her mother met her on the porch, arms folded, eyes cold. "You need to stop this nonsense," her mother hissed, voice barely above a whisper. "You will not embarrass us any further. Maya has done what you could not, made us proud. Don't ruin her moment. Don't ruin our family." Naomi's protests fell on deaf ears. Her father only offered tired, dismissive words. "Let it go, Naomi. You're being selfish." Word reached the art community, too. Maya's mural was entered into a major regional competition. Every time Naomi tried to explain, to anyone, she was met with disbelief. "Are you really accusing your own sister of theft? She's always been jealous, you know. Naomi, why can't you just be happy for your family?" Even Jade, loyal as ever, couldn't protect her. "You can't fight the Holmeses with words," she warned. "They own every story in this town." Rumors multiplied. At the coffee shop, Naomi overheard women whispering behind their cups. "I heard she tried to sabotage her sister's career. Maybe she's just bitter. Never could keep a real job, you know." The isolation was suffocating. Old friends avoided her texts. The art studio above the bakery, once her haven, became a prison of empty canvases and echoing doubts. Rent went unpaid. Calls from her landlord grew sharp, then angry. One day, Naomi's name trended on local Twitter. Not for her art, but for an anonymous tip that she'd been harassing her sister and threatening the Holmes family's reputation. The press was quick to take sides. Maya, in a televised interview, offered a look of wounded innocence. "I love my sister. I hope she finds happiness. But we all have to move forward, even if it's painful." The world saw Maya as a victim, gracious, misunderstood. Naomi, meanwhile, became the villain in her own story. Bills piled up. The foundation, citing concerns about Naomi's mental health, quietly revoked an internship offer she'd earned months earlier. Her mother sent one last message. If you have any love for this family, you'll keep quiet. Let Maya's success lift us all. Or leave us alone. It was a breaking point. Alone in the apartment, Naomi stared at the blank canvas. She thought of burning everything, disappearing for good, letting the lie win. But in the deepest silence, another idea took root. A raw, relentless need for truth. If her family wanted her to disappear, she would do the opposite. She would paint, not for their pride, but for every invisible girl silenced by people who only cared for perfection. Night after night, Naomi worked feverishly. She filled canvas after canvas. Mothers with masks, smiling as they cut the wings from their daughters. Sisters bathed in borrowed light, shadows stretching from their feet. Hands reaching for locked doors, mouths sewn shut by golden thread. Each painting was a confession, a witness statement in oil and acrylic, refusing to be ignored. Jade brought food, encouragement, and a battered journal. Write everything down, not just the facts, how it felt. Make them see. Naomi's art was raw, unvarnished. She didn't care if it was beautiful. She cared if it was true. As the city celebrated Maya, Naomi toiled in darkness, preparing her own reckoning. By the end of the month, her studio was overflowing. The landlord threatened eviction, but Naomi begged for 2 more weeks. "Something important is happening here," she insisted, voice trembling but certain. "Let me finish." She slept little, ate less, but every brushstroke burned brighter than shame. The day she finally stepped back from her last canvas, Naomi felt lighter. Her pain transformed into purpose. She took photos of her work, drafted a statement, and searched for art spaces that would accept a collection like hers. She didn't know what would happen next, only that she would not be silent. Her revenge would be in color, in truth, in the power of art that could not be stolen or denied. From the ashes of shame, Naomi was ready to rise. Naomi left her apartment just before sunrise, clutching a duffel bag stuffed with sketchbooks, a change of clothes, and 3 small canvases. Her most honest work. Her landlord had given her one final warning the night before. There would be no more extensions, no more mercy for late rent. She had nowhere else to go. For the first time in her life, the thought was not just terrifying, it was strangely freeing. No more pretending, no more masks. Jade found her wandering the edge of downtown, shoulders slumped, eyes burning from exhaustion and paint fumes. Jade didn't ask questions. She simply wrapped an arm around Naomi's waist and guided her onto a city bus, past the familiar blocks of Sycamore Street, and into the heart of a different neighborhood. One with broken windows and bright murals, where people wore their struggle and hope out loud. They got off at a squat brick building on a graffiti-painted corner, the Oak Haven Community Center. The sign over the door read, "Art, music, shelter, family." Jade led Naomi inside, where voices and laughter echoed down the halls. The air smelled of coffee, chalk dust, and new beginnings. "You'll be safe here," Jade promised. "Nobody cares who your family is. They care what you bring to the table." In a sunlit room at the back, a group of teenagers, mostly black and brown, some speaking Spanish, some Somali, were painting a mural that sprawled across the cinder block wall. Flowers burst from cracks in the concrete. Birds with mismatched wings soared overhead. A woman in her 40s with locks piled high and paint flecks on her jeans stepped over. "I'm Miss Delia. Jade says you can paint, that true?" Naomi hesitated, then nodded. holding out a sketchbook like an offering. Delia flipped through the pages, her expression unreadable at first. Then she grinned, wide and real. "You got a lot to say. Welcome to Oak Haven, Naomi. You hungry?" It wasn't charity, just an invitation. Over a breakfast of pancakes and strong coffee, Naomi watched as kids drifted in and out. Kareem, who tagged trains with his poetry and painted wild, angry eyes. Angie, who'd run away from home after her stepfather tried to make her invisible. Luz, who'd lost her mother to ice and drew wings on every building she could find. Naomi listened to their stories, each one messy, defiant, unfinished. For the first time, she saw her own pain reflected back, not as shame, but as proof she'd survived. Delia handed her a brush. "Can you help with the next section? Kids are painting their dreams, but half of them are afraid to say them out loud. I told them art is where you get to shout." Naomi nodded. She knelt beside Luz and Kareem, painting sunflowers over storm clouds, bridges over empty highways, the act of creating with others, without expectation, without judgment, healed something raw inside her. Days slipped into weeks. Naomi lived in a small room at the back of the center, sleeping on a cot, her canvases propped up against the radiator. She worked as an assistant art teacher in exchange for a place to stay and meals. She taught kids to shade shadows, to paint pain and pride. And every night, she returned to her private project, her series of confessional paintings, her silent protest against the family that had erased her. Slowly, news of her talent spread. The center director encouraged her to submit her portfolio to the annual Urban Voices Art Show, a gritty, diverse exhibit known for elevating voices the city's elite ignored. "You sure?" Naomi asked, nervous. "My work is personal. That's why it matters," Delia replied. "You want revenge? Show the world the truth. Let them decide whose story deserves to be seen." Meanwhile, the Oak Haven kids became her family. They shared ramen and stories, helped Naomi brainstorm ideas, even defended her in tense group chats when old classmates tried to stir up rumors. "You don't owe your family anything," Angie told her one night. "Blood's just paint in the water. You build your own color here." In this hidden sanctuary, Naomi began to see herself clearly, not just a victim, but a survivor, an artist, a leader. The shame faded. In its place grew a fierce, quiet hope. When the day came to submit to the Urban Voices show, Naomi sealed her application with trembling hands. But this time, she used her real name. Let them see. Let them all see. As she walked home through the bustling halls of Oak Haven, she realized her true revenge was just beginning. Her family had made her invisible. She would answer with color, with light, with a story no one could erase. Naomi's days settled into a new rhythm at Oak Haven. Breakfast with the kids, hours teaching art classes, and long evenings lost in her own painting. For the first time in years, the weight of the home's name lifted from her shoulders. No one here expected her to be perfect. No one here asked her to shrink. Still, every night after lights out, she'd return to her small, sun-dappled room, pull out her battered journal, and write. Not just about the betrayal, but about everything that had ever left a bruise on her soul. She wrote about family dinners, her mother's compliments laced with warnings, her father's approval always just out of reach. She wrote about Maya's effortless grace, and the way even her smallest victories seemed to cast a shadow over Naomi's dreams. She wrote about that night at the gala, the applause for a mural that wasn't Maya's, and the chill that settled when her name was never spoken. But her words didn't stop with her own story. Naomi began asking the Oak Haven teens about their families, their hurts, the secrets they kept hidden in sketchbooks and poems. Angie described the pressure of living up to her mother's sacrifices, the fear of wasting her shot. Kareem talked about feeling invisible in school, about teachers who only saw his temper, never his talent. Every story added fuel to Naomi's art. She painted hands reaching out of darkness, faces split between a mask and a scream. She captured moments of love laced with control. Mothers braiding daughters' hair with one hand and clipping their wings with the other. Fathers holding up trophies in one hand, silencing their sons with the other. She called the series Daughters of Sycamore. Each canvas a confession, a protest, a plea. One evening, Delia stopped by Naomi's room, holding a mug of mint tea. She lingered over the newest canvas, a girl with rainbow eyes and a cracked golden crown, tears running like rivers down her cheeks. "You're not just painting your pain, Naomi," Delia said quietly. "You're painting all of ours. This is bigger than your family." Naomi wiped her hands on her jeans, suddenly shy. "Will it matter? Or will people just see another girl with a grudge?" Delia smiled. "Truth always matters, and there are more of us than you think." That night, Naomi made a decision. She would not let the Holmeses bury her story beneath layers of PR and reputation. If they demanded silence, she would answer with honesty so loud it could not be ignored. She started documenting everything. She scanned old family letters, photos, Maya's emails about the mural. She added voice memos of Oak Haven kids telling their truths, about parents who didn't listen, about churches that offered charity but demanded perfection, about dreams that got smaller every year. She stitched these words into the canvases themselves, hiding confessions in swirling paint. "She only loved me when I was winning," he said. "Holmes girls don't cry. If you're not perfect, don't come home." The process was painful, but it felt like pulling poison from a wound. With every secret exposed, Naomi felt lighter, and angrier too. The urge for revenge wasn't hatred, it was justice. A hunger to make things right for herself and every other disappointment, pushed to the margins. Delia noticed. "You're not afraid of what happens if the Holmeses see this?" Naomi shook her head. "They stole my name, my voice, my work. The only thing left to take is my fear, and I'm done giving them that." She submitted the Daughters of Sycamore series to the Urban Voices art show. Her application, accompanied by an artist statement. "This work is about all the girls who were told to be grateful for crumbs, who were shamed for their differences, whose families turned love into a weapon. It is for anyone who has ever been erased, and who refuses to stay gone." A week later, the gallery called. Naomi's heart pounded as she picked up the phone. "Ms. Holmes, we'd like to feature your work as the centerpiece of the show. The city's never seen anything like it." Naomi hung up, dazed and breathless. She called Jade first, then Delia, then all the Oak Haven kids, promising them tickets and space for their own pieces. That night, Naomi stood alone in the art room, staring at the rows of canvases, the silent witnesses to her story. Let them come. Let them see. In the darkness, Naomi knew. Her family's grip on her life had finally broken. Her revenge, born of pain, had become a light. The Urban Voices art show opened on a rainy Friday night. The city's old manufacturing district, buzzing with energy and anticipation. For years, the show had been a refuge for outsiders, a showcase for graffiti artists, spoken word poets, and anyone who'd ever been told no by the city's art elite. But this year, word had spread about a collection called Daughters of Sycamore. Paintings so raw, so unflinching that even the most jaded curators whispered about them in awed, uneasy tones. Naomi arrived early, dressed in black jeans and a battered denim jacket splattered with paint. Jade was at her side, holding her umbrella, her grin a steady beam of encouragement. Delia and half the Oak Haven teens had piled into an old minivan, and they poured out into the gallery, wide-eyed and excited. Inside, the space was humming with life. Journalists with notepads, influencers snapping selfies, and clusters of young people waiting for something real. Naomi's series dominated the main hall. Towering canvases of masked mothers, daughters with broken crowns, hands reaching out for sunlight through walls of trophies and law degrees. A hush fell as the crowd gathered for the unveiling. The curator, a young black woman with a fierce smile, spoke into the microphone. "This year's centerpiece is more than art. It's a reckoning. Naomi Holmes's Daughters of Sycamore tells the truth so many of us have lived, but never dared to say out loud." Naomi stood by her work as people filed past, watching their reactions. Shock, anger, tears, recognition. Some wept openly. Others stared, fists clenched. A few left, visibly shaken. One woman, a retired teacher, paused at a painting of a girl with her mouth sewn shut. "That was my daughter," she whispered, her eyes brimming. "I wish I'd listened. I wish I'd seen." Teens crowded around Naomi, snapping photos, tagging her online, DMing her with their own stories. "My family is just like this. I thought I was the only one. You made me feel seen." By the second hour, local news crews had arrived, eager for a soundbite. Naomi, hands trembling, spoke to a reporter. "My family taught me to hide pain behind perfection. But art is about the truth. This is for every girl who was told to disappear." That night, #daughters of Sycamore trended across social media. Online debates erupted. Some called Naomi brave. Some called her a traitor. Others demanded answers from the Holmes family, who'd built their reputation on unity and success. By morning, Naomi's inbox overflowed with invitations. College art departments, podcasts, even a spot in a traveling exhibition. Her phone rang nonstop. Some old friends offering apologies, others demanding to know how she could do this to her own family. But nothing compared to what happened next. 3 days later, the city paper ran a front-page feature on the artist who exposed the dark side of success. Maya's stolen mural was mentioned by name. Anonymous sources began to talk. A former classmate admitted Maya had never painted a thing. A cousin revealed how Naomi had been quietly erased for years. The Holmes family issued a stiff formal statement. "We are deeply saddened by the recent, unfounded accusations and the pain they have caused our family." But the cracks had begun to show. That week, Oak Haven's front desk was swamped with flowers, letters, and thank you cards. Parents brought their kids to Naomi's classes, asking if she could teach them to paint the truth. Delia beamed. "You changed something, girl. You opened a door for all of us." Not everyone was grateful. Naomi received threats, hate mail, and more than one angry phone call from relatives demanding she take it all back. Her mother's voice shook with rage. "You ruined us! How could you? How dare you?" But for once, Naomi didn't flinch. She had seen the power of her voice, and she would never go silent again. That weekend, the gallery extended her show, scheduling late-night viewings for teens and survivors of family abuse. Local organizers asked Naomi to lead a mural project across the city, turning blank walls into stories no one could erase. One afternoon, Karim handed Naomi a card, scrawled in looping script. "Thank you for making me feel like more than a mistake." Naomi smiled, tears in her eyes. The revenge she'd imagined, shaming her family, exposing their lies, was nothing compared to the revolution she'd sparked. A world where hidden truths became shared strength. Her family's portrait was cracking, but in its place, Naomi had painted something far more powerful: freedom and the courage to begin again. The aftermath of the art show was like living through a storm. Exhilarating, terrifying, impossible to control. In the weeks that followed, Naomi's name remained on everyone's lips. For some, she was a hero. For others, a betrayer. The Daughters of Sycamore series was now part of a city-wide conversation about family, race, and the dangers of idolizing perfection. But no storm lasts forever, and the Holmes family had weathered worse. Within days, they rallied their power. It started with a letter, delivered by courier, sealed with the Holmes firm's crest. The language was cold and legal. Cease and desist. Defamation. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. The letter demanded Naomi immediately remove her artwork from the gallery, retract her public statements, and issue a formal apology, or face a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Her hands shook as she read it. Jade tried to laugh it off. "You know they're bluffing, right?" But Naomi saw the worry in her friend's eyes. This was more than just a family feud. This was the Holmes machine, and it meant to crush her. Next, the family went on the offensive in the press. Naomi's mother appeared on local news, eyes bright with tears. "We have always loved and supported Naomi. We only wish she would come home and heal with us. These stories she's telling, they aren't true. She's hurting, and we hope she gets help." Maya wrote a viral essay in the city magazine, positioning herself as the misunderstood sister, the true artist whose reputation had been unfairly attacked. "She was always jealous," Maya insisted. "She struggled, but we tried to help her. I wish her peace, but she can't destroy us to heal herself." Suddenly, invitations dried up. The gallery hosting Naomi's work received threatening calls from Holmes-affiliated donors. Art show sponsors pulled funding. The Oak Haven Center's director got a letter from a city attorney warning them that continued association with such defamatory conduct could cost them their nonprofit status. Delia gathered her staff, fierce and unwavering. "We're not backing down. We don't erase survivors here." But even she admitted, "This fight is bigger than us, Naomi. Be careful." Online, trolls and bots flooded Naomi's social media with slurs, accusations, and threats. "Crazy. Liar. Ungrateful child. Holmes' blood. Holmes' shame." Naomi's phone rang at all hours. Her old landlord, scared friends, the gallery director, all with the same message. "Are you okay? Are you sure you want to keep this up?" At night, the pressure pressed in on her chest. Naomi wondered if maybe this was the price for telling the truth. Losing her job, her art, her place in the world. She watched as her family weaponized the very things that once made her feel safe. Their money, their name, their connections. One day, a young lawyer named Amara stopped by Oak Haven. She introduced herself as a former Holmes Foundation intern, one who'd watched Naomi's story unfold with growing fury. "I know how they operate," Amara said. "They think the law is theirs to command, but public opinion is changing. If you want to fight, you won't be alone." Naomi was hesitant, but Amara's conviction gave her hope. Together, they started planning. gathering documentation, screenshots, witness statements, and community support. Delia and the Oak Haven kids launched a social media campaign. Art is truth. Stand with Naomi. Letters poured in from teachers, artists, and families who'd been shamed into silence by their own perfect relatives. The gallery, despite threats, decided to keep Naomi's art up until a judge tells us otherwise. But the Holmeses pushed harder. They lobbied city officials to investigate Oak Haven's finances, sent cease and desist orders to allies, and filed an official lawsuit against Naomi, accusing her of libel, slander, and moral damage to the family legacy. Her mother's final message was brutal. "Take it all down, Naomi. This is your last chance. Don't make us destroy you." Naomi read the letter, hands steady now. The old fear was there, but underneath it was something stronger, a conviction she had never known before. She called Amara. "Let's fight," Naomi said quietly. "Not just for me, for every girl who was told her pain wasn't real." That night, Naomi painted one last piece. Herself, surrounded by 1,000 hands. Some holding her back, others lifting her up. In the middle, her own eyes burned with the truth. They could shame her, sue her, even try to erase her. But Naomi would not surrender her story. Not now. Not ever. The family's counterattack had begun. But this time, Naomi wasn't fighting alone. The first sign came in the form of sidewalk chalk. Overnight, the gray concrete in front of the gallery exploded with color. Words like "RT Ill Truth," "Stand with Naomi," and "No More Perfect Lies." Kids from Oak Haven, teenagers from nearby schools, and even a few local artists had come together to cover the block in hope. Naomi stood in the early morning light, staring at the riot of color. She felt tears prick her eyes, not from fear, but from something dangerously close to pride. The gallery opened its doors that day to the largest crowd it had ever seen. People waited for hours to see Daughters of Sycamore. Some brought flowers. Others left letters at the foot of the canvases. "My mother never let me cry. My sister stole everything I loved. Thank you for saying what I never could." The city's newspapers ran dueling headlines. "Holmes family seeks justice for slander," and just beneath it, "Artist's work inspires flood of survivor stories." A local news crew interviewed Naomi outside the gallery, and for the first time, she looked directly into the camera and said, "The only thing I've ever wanted is for people like me to know they are not alone." Online, stand with. Naomi surged past the Holmes' media push. Survivors and advocates from around the country shared their own stories of family erasure, of being the black sheep or the scapegoat, of losing their voices for the sake of someone else's perfection. A group of local teachers started a GoFundMe to help Naomi with legal expenses, and within days, donations poured in. Oak Haven became a center of organizing. Delia set up a wall for people to post stories, poems, or confessions, anonymous or signed. Soon the hallways were lined with color and pain and hope, living proof of the movement Naomi's art had sparked. Meanwhile, Amara built Naomi's legal case, drawing on evidence from Naomi's journals, emails, and Maya's stolen mural. Other former Holmes Foundation interns stepped forward, some admitting on record that they'd witnessed the family cover-up scandals and silence dissent for years. One even confessed that Maya's award-winning mural had been suspicious from the start. Naomi was always the artist. Anyone who paid attention knew. With every attack from the Holmeses, each cease and desist letter, each threat to Oak Haven's funding, more voices rose in Naomi's defense. The city's youth poet laureate held a protest reading on the courthouse steps. Street artists painted Naomi's wall downtown, a shifting mural dedicated to survivors of family betrayal. Maya's social media presence, once gleaming, became a battleground. Comment sections filled with accusations and questions. Did you really steal your sister's art? Why haven't you answered Naomi's claims? How many others did your family silence? The Holmes parents lashed out, but the more they tried to control the narrative, the more brittle their image became. One night, Maya posted a video in tears, claiming she never meant to hurt anyone. The comments were split. Some comforted her, but most demanded she return the credit to Naomi. Throughout it all, Naomi kept painting, teaching, and showing up for Oakhaven's kids. She refused to let fear define her. Not anymore. One afternoon, the gallery director pulled Naomi aside, voice trembling with excitement. A major national art magazine wants to interview you. They see what you're doing as the future of community-driven art. Naomi's hands shook as she realized her story, once buried in the shadow of Sycamore Street, had become a rallying cry for hundreds, maybe thousands. On the night before her court date, Oakhaven threw a block party. The entire neighborhood came. Food trucks, musicians, poetry slams, and dozens of kids proudly painting together in the street. Jade handed Naomi a microphone, nudging her onto a makeshift stage. Naomi looked out at the sea of faces. Kids, parents, strangers, allies. And for the first time, she spoke without fear. I was taught to be quiet, to be grateful for scraps. But tonight I see that our stories are power. My family tried to erase me, but you all brought me back. This, us together, is the only justice I've ever wanted. Thunderous applause erupted. Delia wrapped Naomi in a hug, whispering, "You're not alone? Never again." Late that night, Naomi finished one final painting. The Oakhaven kids, hands outstretched, weaving threads of every color into a tapestry that soared beyond the frame. At the top, a single word. Enough. The next morning, as she prepared to face her family in court, Naomi carried more than just her story. She carried the weight and love of a community, finally refusing to be silent. The courthouse was ringed with news vans, protesters, and police barricades. Camera flashes bounced off the stone steps as Naomi arrived, hand in hand with Jade, and flanked by Delia, Amara, and a small army of Oakhaven supporters. Across the street, another group gathered in support of the Holmeses, well-dressed, tight-lipped, and visibly unsettled by the chanting crowd. "Art is truth! Stand with Naomi!" No more perfect lies. Naomi's heart pounded as she entered the courtroom. The Holmes family sat on the opposite bench. Her mother, composed and cold. Her father stone-faced. Maya pale and silent beside them. For the first time, Naomi saw them not as her tormentors, but as people. Fragile, desperate to control a story that had spun beyond their grasp. The trial opened with sharp words from the Holmes' attorney. "Defamation, slander, intentional damage to the Holmes legacy. We are here to restore justice," Amara responded coolly. "This is a case about stolen voices, about the right to tell your own truth, even when it is inconvenient for the powerful." Naomi took the stand first. Amara guided her gently through the story. The stolen mural, the public shaming, the years of erasure. Naomi's voice trembled, but did not break. "I tried to be perfect, but I was always invisible, unless my art could be used to make someone else look good. When my sister took credit for my work, I realized I would never be enough for them. So I painted what I felt, and what so many girls like me have felt. Silenced, shamed, forced to choose between honesty and belonging. The opposing lawyer pounced, trying to paint Naomi as jealous, unstable, vindictive. But Naomi stood her ground, calmly presenting emails, sketches, and the testimony of Oak Haven staff and former Foundation interns. The truth, layer by layer, emerged. Maya had never painted before the gala. The Holmes family had pressured friends and colleagues to keep quiet. More than one family friend admitted to covering for Maya's lie. Then came the witnesses. Delia testified to Naomi's teaching and mentorship at Oak Haven. Kareem spoke about what it meant to see his own pain reflected in Naomi's art. Parents from the community described how their children blossomed under her care, finding strength to confront their own family wounds. The turning point arrived when Maya herself took the stand. At first, she repeated the family's script. "I only wanted to make them proud. Naomi always struggled, and we tried to help." But under cross-examination, cracks appeared. Tears filled Maya's eyes as she stared at her sister. "I did steal her work," she finally admitted, voice breaking. "I thought if I just did what Mom wanted, maybe she'd love me more. I'm sorry, Naomi. I never meant to erase you. I just didn't know who I was without being perfect." A hush fell over the courtroom. Naomi's mother went pale. Her father clenched his jaw. The Holmes' defense collapsed in real time. The judge's ruling came swiftly. The lawsuit was dismissed as meritless and retaliatory. The mural's credit was officially returned to Naomi. The Holmes family was ordered to publicly retract their statements and issue an apology for their campaign of defamation. More important than the verdict, though, was what happened outside the courthouse. Reporters swarmed Naomi, asking what she would do next. She faced the cameras, her voice steady. "This isn't just about me. It's about everyone who was ever told to be quiet so someone else could shine. We are done hiding. Our stories matter." Her family exited quietly, their power finally broken. Not by hate, but by the truth laid bare. Naomi returned to Oak Haven that night to a hero's welcome. The kids painted her portrait on the mural wall. Strong, proud, surrounded by golden threads, binding her to her new family. Delia handed her a bouquet of wildflowers. "You didn't just win for yourself, Naomi. You won for all of us." Naomi smiled, tears of relief and pride streaming down her face. She was free. Free from the legacy that had tried to own her. Free to define herself on her own terms. But as she looked at the faces gathered around her, Oak Haven kids, survivors, friends, she understood. Her story was never just about revenge. It was about healing a wound. For herself, and for every girl taught to keep quiet. The reckoning was over. Now Naomi was ready to build something beautiful from the ruins. The weeks after the verdict passed in a blur of color and possibility. Naomi awoke each morning to sunlight streaming through Oak Haven's tall windows, the air thick with laughter, music, and the tap-tap of brushes against canvas. For the first time in her life, she felt not just seen, but chosen. By herself, by her found family, and by a community that had helped her rewrite the rules. She could have retreated, let the drama fade, but Naomi refused to go quiet. With the settlement funds from the court's order, she partnered with Delia and Amara to establish the Sycamore Art Collective, a non-profit dedicated to giving marginalized youth a voice through art. They rented a long-abandoned building and filled it with murals, poetry, and open mic nights. Kids from across the city flocked to the space, eager to share their stories, to paint, to heal. Naomi worked side by side with them, mentoring not just technique, but truth-telling. She taught Karim how to channel rage into poetry that crackled with energy. She helped Angie organize the center's first girls-only mural. No themes, no filters. Just whatever needed to be said. Every wall became a canvas for hope, defiance, and sometimes grief. Word spread quickly. Local papers called the collective the city's beating heart. College recruiters visited art classes, offering scholarships to kids who'd once been dismissed as troublemakers. Oak Haven's waiting list doubled. Naomi's own career blossomed in the light of her honesty. Galleries in bigger cities requested her Daughters of Sycamore series, but she always insisted the originals stay home, where the girls who'd inspired them could see their power reflected on the walls. She spoke at high schools and women's shelters, sharing her story with anyone who needed to hear that survival was possible. One evening, Delia found Naomi alone on the collective's rooftop, staring at the city skyline. "You did it, you know," Delia said, pressing a steaming mug of tea into Naomi's hands. "Did what?" "Change things, for yourself, for all of us. You turned all that pain into something nobody can take away." Naomi smiled, humbled, and proud. "I always thought revenge was about making them hurt," she admitted. "But the sweetest revenge was choosing my own joy and helping others find theirs." A few weeks later, Maya visited the collective, alone, without her parents. She stood awkwardly in the doorway, eyes rimmed red. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to change." Naomi didn't answer right away. She looked around at the room full of girls painting sunflowers over old scars, at Angie leading a class, at Karim teaching a shy newcomer how to hold a brush. "You can help," Naomi finally said, voice gentle but firm. "But you start at the beginning. Here, everyone earns their place." Maya nodded, rolling up her sleeves. Together, they painted side by side, not as rivals, but as two broken sisters trying to build something new. The Holmes parents faded from the city's social scene. Without their perfect portrait, the house on Sycamore Street grew quiet, the lawn untrimmed, the lights low. Rumor had it they'd moved out of state. Naomi felt only a distant pang, of pity, not regret. Their world had been built on silence. Hers now rang with music and truth. On the anniversary of her first mural at Oak Haven, Naomi stood before the largest crowd the center had ever seen. She didn't speak about her family, or the lawsuit, or even her own pain. She spoke about every girl who'd ever been asked to shrink, every boy taught to hide his colors, every person told that their story didn't matter. "You belong here," she said simply. "Your voice is your legacy. Let the world see it." A hush fell, then thunderous applause. Afterward, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and purple, Naomi walked through the gallery one last time. She ran her fingers over the old wounds, now painted with wildflowers and gold. She saw her own face, strong, proud, redeemed, not by the family she was born into, but by the family she had chosen and built. Redemption, she realized, was not about erasing the past. It was about turning pain into light and making room for others to find their way home. And so Naomi's story ended not with vengeance, but with victory, earned, shared, and shining for all to see.